Hi guys, so here we are, the layout build. And the main issue here is where it's actually going to go, because it's 3 meters long. Corris sits here on the way into the room, and Pendray's at the back. So the only option is really to, well, just have it in the room on these keyboard stands. I need help. My idea for this layout is to build it in 3 sections, each 100 centimeters long by 40 centimeters wide. This consists of 2x1 battens with a 6mm ply board on top. Because I'm rubbish at woodwork, I build mine using a different method to other modelers. I'll start here by adding a bead of wood glue along the batten, as this will give the majority of the strength to the build. This can then be placed in position under the ply sheet, which at the moment is being held up by offcuts of 2x1, which obviously give it the exact height it needs to be sitting at. Small tack nails are then hammered in from above. As this is only 40 centimeters wide, I tend to just use 1 nail on each end and 1 in the middle. Moving down the longer sides of the baseboard, and the technique is repeated. A bead of glue, then nails to hold it in place. This will have a couple more nails along its length. I like to lightly hammer the first nail through the ply, and then give the 2x1 its final adjustments, which should be as tight up as possible to the end piece. As I work down the board adding the nails, I check that the 2x1 is sitting flush with the edge of the ply, and give slight adjustments where needed. A final nail will now secure the end batten to the longer piece. These 2 pieces also have a drop of glue between them in the joint for strength. Three out of 4 pieces are now on, and the final one, the other end from the first piece, needs to be cut to fit the gap. I measure the gap first, and then cut it with a circular saw to give a perfect square end. This piece has had the glue added, before being pushed into place. It's a slightly tight fit, but that's what I wanted, because if it's too loose, it won't have the overall strength when it's finished. I use a hammer to lightly tap the batten until it's sitting flush with the ply's edge. Nails can then be added to secure it, and that's 3 on top and 1 into each end. You may have spotted that the frame overshoots the ply by an inch or so, but that's okay. I planned it. I then use the circular saw to cut these pieces flush with the ply. The reason I like to do it this way is because of my shoddy craftsmanship. And if I cut the pieces before adding them to the boards, they would most likely come out a bit too short, thus ruining my day. That whole process is repeated for the other 2 baseboards. With the boards all done, the next thing to consider is how I'll connect them together. And I go for these bad boys. The benefit of this particular type of latch is that it's adjustable, which will compensate me attaching them on the boards too close or too far away. That also means that I can fine-tune the connections until the boards are a super tight fit. The boards will have one of these on either side of the join. Whilst this holds them together, it doesn't mean that the boards will be level. So that's where these come in. Alignment dowels are really easy to use, and mean the track joints across the boards will stay consistent. Once again, I'll be using 2 per connection. I'll start with the dowels, and to prepare the boards for adding them on, I'll line them up on a flat surface, and use strong clamps to hold them in place. I'll do a final check that the ply boards match up. These alignment dowels are 8mm wide, and it's crucial that they're a tight fit. So make sure that you don't use anything larger than an 8mm drill bit. The drill is then used to form a hole through both pieces of 2x1. Doing it in this way means that the holes on both boards will match up perfectly. I then remove the clamps and add hot glue into the hole. Whilst the dowel is a tight fit, it will give added security in case they get knocked or anything like that. Before the glue cools, the dowels are inserted and lightly tapped into place. The process is repeated for the female end of the dowel connection, though you need to be careful that the glue doesn't fill the dowel up, as it's hollow out the back as well as the front. A quick test and they worked as I'd hoped, which is good because I don't have any spare. The clamps are now added back on, as I'll move on to the adjustable latches. I'll eventually remove these as I'll be adding a fascia onto the front of the boards, but for now, they'll hold the layout together as I work on it. I'll start by getting a rough idea of their position. I mark the first screw. A screw is then carefully inserted some of the way into the wood. I'll then take it out, add the latch in, and pop the screw back in all the way. With this in place, it's just a case of working around the remaining screws. There's 2 in each piece. The best part about these, as I've mentioned, is the fact that they're adjustable. To do this, you simply unhook it and wind the hook either way. Sometimes it takes a couple of times to find the sweet spot. I've got the 3 boards sitting on their stands, so I'll give a quick test to see if they're all happily bolting together. These things are really quick to use, so exhibition setup time is really low. I don't want to go too far in this video this week, but as it takes ages to do, I'll get the first layer of terrain down now. This is foil covered insulation foam designed for house builds, but works perfectly as a base. I'm lucky that my neighbour gave me a load of this, so the project so far has been fairly cheap. The foam is attached to the wooden base with PVA. It's important to spread the glue around to get maximum surface contact, especially if you're going to be hacking the foam up. I'm also adding a whole sheet of foam to the boards in one go. Doing this means that the top of the foam will match up perfectly through the board joins. This foam is my favourite method to make scenery because you can modify it until you're happy with it. Unlike something like, say, chicken wire, where you can't really see the final result until it's too late. The foam needs to be weighted down as it dries, so I'll throw some tubs of heavy things that I need to tidy and arrange at some point. This can be left for a day or two, as I really want the glue to fully set before messing with it. Ah yeah, see, costume change, different day. The top layer of foil is peeled off from the foam as I don't want it to create potential shorts in the wiring later on. I found this extremely satisfying how it came off in one piece. Right, so I bought a new hot wire foam cutter to cut the foam. The slight issue here is that it didn't actually cut the foam. It's plugged into the mains and seems to have heat in it, but yeah, pathetic attempt here. Whilst I won't be carving a hillside until the track bed is in place, I do need to create a split in the joints. The lack of hot foam cutter meant that I resorted to good old kitchen knives. This may look nice and peaceful with relaxing music and my commentary talking you through it, but in reality, the room was a manic place.
Oh God! I'm so sorry! I'm so sorry!
Yeah, I told you. Also, I didn't glue the foam to the final board as it will eventually be the fiddle yard, and I'm still undecided what layout I'm going to use for that part, so for now I've cut off the excess. The final layer for this video is a good sheet of ply. This will act as the track bed itself, but more on that, probably next week. Unless I run to Nant Gwernol and film from there. Who knows, because I don't. Once again, a single piece helps to keep everything nice and level. I'm going to add little markers on the side of the track bed ply and on the foam, as this will help align it back up later. Then I'll mark out the cuts required to separate each board. Keeping it in one piece at the moment helps with the planning and makes it easier to scribble along. The next job is to start marking out the actual layout itself. Doing this will leave me with a template on what wood I can cut away from this massive sheet, which will help with weight reduction. To help plan it, I've got my original drawing of the layout, some track, the model of the station building, and finally some scribbles that I did at the station, which includes the width of the platform and various parts of the area, and the height of the slate and wooden fencing, things like that. But you needn't worry about all that now, as we'll pick all this up again in another video. Cheers.